14 forks stopped midair when my 7-year-old blessed Mom's new friend. The Weston dining room smelled like sage stuffing and cinnamon candles. 14 relatives arranged around Patricia's good china, the white tablecloth she only brought out for holidays and funerals. My wife squeezed my hand under the table as our son Tommy raised his small palms. "I want to say grace," he'd announced, and everyone smiled like it was the sweetest thing they'd ever seen. Aunt Linda aimed her phone to record. Tommy bowed his head. We followed. "Dear God, thank you for this food. Thank you for Grandma and Grandpa. Thank you for Daddy, who works really hard." Claire's fingers tightened on mine. "And thank you for Mom's new friend, Mr. Jake, who visits when Daddy's at work and makes Mom laugh really loud upstairs. Amen." The silence hit like a truck through a guardrail. Then, one sound, metal on ceramic. Patricia Weston's fork hitting her plate. Tommy opened his eyes, smiled, and reached for a dinner roll. Golden crust, still warm from the oven, his small fingers closed around it like nothing had happened. Because for him, nothing had. I looked at Claire. Her face cycled through colors I'd never seen on her before. White, then red, then something worse. Something that looked like surrender. My hand was still holding Tommy's from the prayer. I realized my knuckles had gone white. I was squeezing too hard. I made myself let go. 14 adults. Complete silence. And my 7-year-old son, reaching for butter, asking, "Can someone pass the breadbasket?" 43 seconds. That's how long 14 adults pretended a 7-year-old hadn't just detonated a grenade made of truth. I counted. Couldn't help it. The clock on Patricia's mantle, the one she inherited from her mother, the one she never let anyone touch, ticked loud enough to hear across the room. 43 seconds of forks not moving, of eyes not meeting, of my son chewing his dinner roll and looking around like he was waiting for someone to compliment his prayer. "Did I do something wrong?" Tommy asked. Richard Weston cleared his throat. Claire's father had a way of taking charge of rooms without raising his voice. "Let's eat," he said, like those two words could rebuild what had just collapsed. "The turkey's getting cold." No, and just like that, the family performed. Dishes passed. Green bean casserole made its way around the table. Aunt Linda set her phone face down like she could bury the recording she'd just made. Nobody looked at me. Nobody looked at Claire. I watched my wife's hands shake as she spooned mashed potatoes onto her plate. She wasn't going to eat them. I knew her tells after 11 years. The way she pushed food around when she was anxious. The way she held her breath when she was caught. She was holding her breath now. Tommy tugged my sleeve. "Daddy, why is everyone being quiet?" "Just hungry, buddy. Eat your dinner." "Okay." He stabbed a piece of turkey. "This is good, Grandma." Patricia Weston smiled at him. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The kind of smile that's covering something else entirely. "Thank you, sweetheart." I made myself take a bite. Couldn't taste it. My mouth had gone dry, my throat tight. Somewhere in my chest, something had cracked open, and everything I thought I knew was leaking out. Jake, who visits when Daddy's at work, makes Mom laugh really loud upstairs. Upstairs. Our bedroom was upstairs. I set my fork down. Carefully. Didn't want to make a sound. 20 minutes later, Claire stood. "I should check on dessert." Code. I knew it was code. 11 years of marriage teaches you the language. Underneath the language. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. The kitchen door swung shut behind me. Claire stood at the counter, hands braced against the granite, head bowed. She didn't turn around when I came in. "Marcus, I don't." I held up a hand even though she couldn't see it. "Not here. Not a full conversation. Just tell me one thing." The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the dining room, I heard Tommy laugh at something his cousin said. Still laughing. Still a kid. "Is it still happening?" Claire turned. Her mascara had started to run. She'd been crying silently, facing the cabinets, and I hadn't even known. "I was going to tell you," she said. "That's not what I asked." "No." She met my eyes. "First time since the prayer. It's over. I swear to God, Marcus, it's over. It ended a month ago. I was going to tell you everything. I was going to—" "Don't swear to God." My voice came out quieter than I expected. Colder. "Not in front of me. Not right now." Through the door, Tommy's voice. "Can I have more pie?" Claire flinched like she'd been slapped. I watched her try to compose herself. Watched her fail. "How long?" I asked. "Marcus, how long?" She looked at the floor. 9 months. 9 months. Our son had been watching this for 9 months. Learning secrets. Being taught that some things Daddy doesn't need to know. "Who is he?" "Someone from work. It doesn't—" "Who is he, Claire?" "Jake Brennan." She said the name like it burned coming out. "He's a realtor at the firm. Marcus, please, can we talk about this at home? Can we just get through dinner? And I'm taking Tommy home." What?" "I'm taking our son and I'm leaving. You can stay here with your family and figure out what you're going to tell them. Or don't tell them anything. I don't care. But I'm not—" sitting at that table for another hour, pretending everything's fine. But Marcus, please. I was already pushing through the door. The dining room went quiet when I walked back in, like they'd been talking about us, which of course they had. Tommy, buddy, get your coat. My son looked up, confused. But there's pie. We'll get pie somewhere else. Claire appeared behind me. Marcus, let's just, Tommy, coat now, please. He must have heard something in my voice, because he didn't argue again. Just slid off his chair and walked to the front closet. Patricia Weston stood. Marcus, I really think we should all sit down and... Mrs. Weston. I turned to face her, kept my voice level. Didn't want to make a scene, didn't want to give them a story to tell later. With respect, don't. She sat back down. I helped Tommy into his jacket, zipped it up. His little face looked up at me, worried now, picking up on the energy even if he didn't understand it. Did I do the prayer wrong, Daddy? No, buddy. I put my hand on his shoulder. You did great. At the door, Richard Weston caught my arm. His grip was firm, but not aggressive. When I turned, his expression surprised me. It wasn't anger or defensiveness. It was something closer to recognition. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm sorry. I looked at him, saw something in his eyes that I'd think about later, in the dark hours when sleep wouldn't come. Something that said he'd been on my side of a conversation like this before. Maybe not the same words, but the same wound. I didn't respond, just nodded once and walked out. November air hit my face, cold enough to sting. I buckled Tommy into his booster seat, walked around to the driver's side, sat down, gripped the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, I could see Claire standing in the doorway of her parents' house, arms wrapped around herself, watching us leave. I started the truck. Daddy? Yeah, buddy. Why did we leave? Did I make everyone sad? I pulled out of the driveway. Didn't look back. No, Tommy, you didn't do anything wrong. You told the truth. That's never wrong. Then why did Mommy look like she was crying? Grown-up stuff, buddy. Sometimes grown-ups cry about things that aren't your fault. Oh. He was quiet for a moment. Then, can we get pie at the gas station? Despite everything, despite the fact that my whole life had just cracked down the middle, I almost laughed. Yeah, buddy. We can get pie at the gas station. No, the cherry kind? Whatever kind you want. He settled back in his seat, satisfied. 7 years old. Still believing that gas station pie could fix anything. I drove, hands steady on the wheel, eyes on the road. Inside, everything was falling. The gas station pie was cherry. Tommy ate it like nothing had changed. I watched the filling drip down his chin and wondered how much longer I could hold myself together. Off-brand Speedway, 8 miles from the Weston's place. The kind of station that sells fishing licenses and lottery tickets and pie that comes in plastic triangle. We sat in the truck with the engine running, heat on, parking lot empty except for a guy pumping gas into a rusted Chevy. Tommy worked on his slice with the focus of a surgeon. Red filling on his fingers, crumbs on his jacket, completely content. This is good, he said through a mouthful. Yeah? Better than Grandma's pumpkin. Don't tell her that, he grinned, gap-toothed. 7 years old and still losing baby teeth. Still young enough to believe that pie quality was the most important topic of the evening. I sipped coffee I didn't want. Bitter and burnt, the way gas station coffee always is. It gave me something to hold, something to do with my hands that wasn't gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white again. Daddy? Yeah, buddy. Mr. Jake brought us pie one time, too. My stomach dropped. I kept my face neutral. 11 years of marriage teaches you how to hide. Claire wasn't the only one who'd learned that skill. Yeah? When was that? I don't know. Tommy licked cherry filling off his thumb. When you were at work, he comes over sometimes. Sometimes. How many times, buddy? You remember? Tommy scrunched his face, thinking, held up his sticky fingers and started counting. Maybe a lot. He's nice. He let me play games on his phone. A lot. To a 7-year-old, what did a lot mean? 5 times, 15, every week for 9 months. What kind of games? Racing ones. And the one with the candy. He took another bite of pie. He has a cool car, too. It goes really fast. He let me sit in the front seat once. I made myself breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way they taught us in that one couples counseling session Claire and I did 3 years ago, before Tommy started kindergarten, back when our problems were things like, we don't communicate enough and you work too much. Back when I thought those were real problems. Tommy. I kept my voice light, easy, just Dad asking questions. Did Mommy ever tell you not to talk about Mr. Jake, like to keep it a secret? He paused, set down his pie. Something shifted in his face, the first sign that maybe somewhere in his 7-year-old brain, he understood this conversation was different. She said it was a surprise. His voice got smaller. For your birthday, maybe? She said it would make you happy if we kept it secret until the right time. My birthday is in March. It was November. Okay, buddy. I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. Gentle this time. Finish your pie. Daddy? Yeah? Did I ruin the surprise? I took the long way home. Needed time, needed the road. Tommy fell asleep before we hit the highway. Pie crust still on his cheek, head tilted against the window, at an angle that would give him a crick in his neck. I should have adjusted him. Didn't. Couldn't stop driving. The headlights carved tunnels through the dark. Ohio in November. Bare trees, brown fields, everything dead or dying. Fitting. A lot. How many afternoons, how many times did Jake Brennan pull into my driveway while I was at work? While I was fixing ventilation systems and unclogging drains and doing overtime because we needed the money? How many times did my son hear his mother laughing really loud upstairs and think nothing of it because he was 7 and didn't know what that sound meant? She said it was a surprise. She trained him. That's what it was. Not on purpose, maybe, not maliciously, but she'd looked my son in the eye and taught him that some things Daddy doesn't need to know. That secrets are okay if they're surprises. That lying to your father is just part of making him happy. I had to pull over. Side of the road, gravel shoulder, hazards on. I leaned forward until my forehead touched the steering wheel. My breath came ragged now, finally, away from the family, and the gas station, and anyone who could see. 9 months. Racing games on his phone. Makes Mom laugh really loud upstairs. Mid of Chapter 3. Round 1. Words written this round, 762. Remaining target, a 700, 850 words, emotional. Direction so far. Marcus is gathering information from Tommy while maintaining composure, but the details are worse than he imagined. The affair wasn't just about Claire. It infiltrated his relationship with his son. Tommy was taught to keep secrets, given gifts, made complicit without understanding. Marcus's control is cracking. The pullover is the first moment he lets himself feel. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough that the windows fogged from my breathing. Long enough that a semi blew past and rocked the truck on its suspension and I didn't flinch. In the back seat, Tommy stirred, mumbled something, settled back into sleep. I watched him in the rearview mirror, the rise and fall of his chest. The way his mouth hung open, the way it always did when he was really out. He looked so small in that booster seat. So completely unaware of what he'd done, what he'd been part of, what was coming. Did I ruin the surprise? That question was going to live in my chest for a long time. Maybe forever. My son, worried that he'd done something wrong by telling the truth. My son, who'd been taught that Daddy's happiness depended on not knowing things. I sat up, wiped my face. Hadn't realized I'd been crying until I felt the wet on my cheeks. Get it together. He's right there. He can't see you like this. I pulled back onto the road. Home. 11:15 at night. Claire's car wasn't in the driveway. Good. I wasn't ready. I carried Tommy inside, careful not to wake him. He was getting heavy. 48 pounds at his last checkup. The pediatrician said he was in the 75th percentile for height. Growing fast. Growing up. I laid him on his bed, pulled off his shoes, his jacket. Didn't bother with pajamas. Just covered him with a dinosaur blanket he'd had since he was 4. The one with the T-Rex that was starting to fade from too many washes. Nightlight on. The one shaped like a rocket ship. He'd picked it out himself last year. I stood in the doorway and watched him sleep. This room used to feel like the safest place in the house. Tommy's kingdom. Dinosaur sheets, rocket nightlight, plastic bins of Legos in the corner, drawings taped to the wall, stick figures of our family, labeled in wobbly crayon. Daddy, Mommy, me. But no Mr. Jake in those drawings. At least not yet. I pulled the door mostly closed, left it cracked the way he liked. The house felt different now, every room contaminated. The couch where Claire and I used to watch TV after Tommy went to bed. Had Jake sat there? The kitchen table, where we ate breakfast. Had she made him coffee? The stairs leading up to our bedroom. I couldn't go up there. Not tonight, maybe not ever. I sat on the couch, turned on the TV for noise. Some late-night talk show, host making jokes I didn't hear. The laugh track sounded obscene. All those people cackling at nothing while my life burned. My phone buzzed. Claire, we need to talk. Please. I love you. I stared at the screen. The words looked foreign. I love you. What did that even mean now? She loved me while she was sleeping with someone else? She loved me while she was teaching our son to lie? I typed back, not tonight, sent it. Then typed again, who is he? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. His name is Jake Brennan. From my office. Marcus, it's over, I promise. Please let me come home and explain. I already knew the name. She'd already told me in the kitchen. But seeing it in text made it more real somehow, made him more real. Not just a ghost in my son's prayer. An actual person with a name, a job, a cool car that went really fast. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a browser, typed the name, Jake Brennan, Columbus Real Estate. His face filled my screen, smiling, confident, the kind of jawline they put on billboards, the kind of guy who probably never worked a night shift in his life, never came home with grease on his hands, never missed a family dinner because the hospital needed him to fix a broken pipe. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I didn't. I just sat there, in the dark, in the house that didn't feel like mine anymore, staring at the face of the man who'd been inside my wife while I was at work, the man who'd bought my son ice cream and racing games, the man who made Claire laugh really loud upstairs. The clock on the mantel ticked. Not Patricia's fancy heirloom, just a cheap Target clock Claire had bought when we moved in. But it sounded the same, counting seconds, marking time. Outside, the wind picked up. November cold pressing against the windows, looking for a way in. It had already found one. Jake Brennan had a LinkedIn profile, a Facebook page, and a smile in every picture that made me want to put my fist through the screen. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Tommy's voice. Makes Mom laugh really loud upstairs. And the sound crawled through me like something with legs. So I sat on the couch with my phone, scrolling through the digital life of the man who'd been screwing my wife, Jake Brennan, 34 years old. Real estate agent at Westbrook Properties, same firm where Claire worked as office manager. His profile photo showed him on a boat, sunglasses pushed up on his head, grinning like he just won something. His cover image was a sunset over a lake. His bio said, "I'm living my best life, work hard, play harder." I wanted to vomit. His Facebook was mostly public. Boats, hiking trips, craft beer, gym selfies with captions like "leg day complete" and "Sunday vibes." The kind of guy who documented everything, who needed the world to see how great his life was. The kind of guy I'd never been. I scrolled back. 8 months, 9, looking for something, evidence, proof. I didn't know what, then I found it. Company Christmas party, last December. A group photo outside some restaurant downtown. Everyone in holiday sweaters, everyone smiling. I almost scrolled past it. But there was Claire, standing next to Jake. Not touching, but close. Closer than colleagues. Her hand was on his arm, and she was laughing. Head thrown back, mouth open. The way she used to laugh with me before Tommy was born, before the overtime shifts and the bills and the slow erosion of everything we'd built. I zoomed in, studied her face. She looked happy, actually happy. When was the last time she'd looked at me like that? I screenshot the photo. Didn't know why. Evidence of what? My own blindness? The months I'd missed because I was too busy fixing other people's broken pipes to notice my own house was flooding. 8 months, maybe longer. I closed Facebook. Opened Instagram. More of the same. Jake on a paddleboard. Jake at a winery. Jake with friends at a Browns game. Holding a beer. Caption. This team is killing me, but I love them anyway. No photos with Claire. He was smart enough for that, at least. Kept her off his public feed. Kept the affair compartmentalized. But he hadn't kept it from my son. Racing games on his phone. He let me sit in the front seat. She said it was a surprise. I locked my phone. Set it on the coffee table. Stared at the ceiling. Somewhere upstairs, in the bedroom I couldn't enter, were sheets that he'd slept in. A mattress that held the shape of his body. Evidence I couldn't bring myself to see. Morning came gray and cold. Tommy woke up hungry. Where's Mommy? I was making cereal because it was all I could manage. Cheerios, milk, the extent of my culinary skills when my hands wouldn't stop shaking. She's at Grandma's. The lie came out smooth. Easier than I expected. She's gonna stay there for a little bit. Why? Grown-up stuff, buddy. Nothing for you to worry about. He accepted this. Kids accept so much. That's what makes them easy to manipulate. That's what Claire had counted on. I watched him eat. Spoon to mouth, mechanical, still half asleep. Dinosaur pajamas he'd put on sometime in the night. Must have woken up, changed, gone back to bed. I hadn't heard him. I'd been too busy staring at photos of Jake Brennan's paddleboard adventures. Daddy? Yeah? Are you sad? The question hit me like a truck. Why do you ask? You look like Mommy did sometimes. When Mr. Jake left and she was in the kitchen, my throat closed. What do you mean, buddy? Tommy shrugged, took another bite of cereal. Sometimes, after Mr. Jake went home, Mommy would cry. I asked if she was sad, and she said no, she was happy. But she didn't look happy. He said it so simply, like it was nothing, like he was describing the weather. She looked like you look now, Daddy. I sent Tommy to watch cartoons, needed a minute, stood at the kitchen sink, hands braced on the counter the way Claire had stood last night at her mother's house. The way people stand when they're trying not to fall. She cried after he left. She didn't look happy. What did that mean? That she regretted it? That she was trapped in something she couldn't stop? that the affair wasn't some passionate romance, but something sadder, more pathetic, a mistake she kept making because she didn't know how to quit. Did that change anything? Didn't know. Couldn't think straight. Everything I thought I understood kept shifting, the ground moving under my feet. A knock at the door. I tensed. Claire. But when I looked through the peephole, it was Dean Volek. Work jacket, Carhartt beanie, holding 2 cups of coffee from the gas station on 5th. I opened the door. Brother. Dean's face was serious, none of his usual jokes. I heard. Tammy in HR told Chandra. Chandra told Mike. Mike told me. You okay? How much do you know? Enough. He held out a coffee. Can I come in? We sat at the kitchen table while Tommy watched Paw Patrol in the living room. I told Dean everything. The prayer, the kitchen, the drive home, Jake Brennan's Facebook page and the Christmas party photo, the gas station pie, and a lot, and she said it was a surprise. Dean listened without interrupting. When I finished, he let out a long breath. Jake Brennan, he said, I know the type. Smooth. Sells you something and makes you thank him for it. Probably tells every woman she's special while he's lining up the next one. You think there were others before Claire? Men like that? Dean shrugged. There's always others. Before, during, after. They don't stop because they feel bad. They stop because they get caught. I stared at my coffee. Hadn't touched it. What do I do? Dean's face shifted. Went from angry on my behalf to something more careful, more serious. Look, man, I've been where you're sitting. 5 years ago, Christina left me for her CrossFit trainer. You know the story. I nodded. Everyone at the hospital knew the story. Dean's divorce had been ugly. Lawyers, accusations, a fight outside the gym that ended with cops. You know what I did? He leaned forward. Everything wrong. Every single thing. I showed up at his gym, made a scene, threw a weight through his car window. Ended up with an assault charge that got pleaded down, but I'm still paying the fine. Dean, I'm not finished. He held up a hand. After that, I keyed his car, twice. Sent his wife anonymous letters about the affair. Yeah, he was married too. Posted about him online. Tried to get him fired. Spent every minute of every day thinking about how to destroy him. He paused. Looked me in the eye. And you know what it got me? Nothing. He moved to Cincinnati. Married the wife anyway, far as I know. Meanwhile, I lost 2 years of my life to hate. Gained 40 pounds. Almost lost my job. Ended up in therapy 3 times a week just to learn how to sleep again. The words hung in the air. Don't do what I did, Marcus. Whatever you do. So what? I just let him walk? Let Claire come back and pretend nothing happened? I didn't say that. Dean shook his head. I said, don't do what I did. There's a difference between getting even and getting destroyed. You got to think about what you actually want, what matters. He glanced toward the living room, where Tommy was laughing at something on the TV. That kid in there, he's what matters. Everything else is noise. After Dean left, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize at first, then I did. Patricia Weston. I almost let it go to voicemail. Picked up anyway. Marcus. Her voice was thin, tired. I owe you an apology. I didn't respond. Let the silence do the work. I knew, she said. Not everything. But I knew something was wrong. Claire called me a few weeks ago, crying, asking if it was too late to save a marriage after you'd done something terrible. My hand tightened on the phone. I told her to pray about it, to take it to God and trust that he'd show her the path. Patricia's voice cracked. I should have told her to tell you. I should have called you myself, but I was protecting my daughter. That's what mothers do. You should have told me. I know. Did Richard know? Long pause. I heard her breathing. Richard suspected. We didn't talk about it. We should have. We're not good at that, Marcus. Talking about hard things. We never have been. I almost laughed. It came out like a cough. So everyone at that table already knew, and I was the only one surprised by my own son's prayer. Not everyone, just, she trailed off. Just the ones who should have said something, and we didn't. She started to cry. I didn't comfort her. I have to go, Mrs. Weston. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I hung up. Stood in my kitchen, phone still warm in my hand, and thought about how many people had watched my marriage die without saying a word. The grandmother knew. The grandfather suspected. And nobody told me, because families protect their own, even when their own is the one doing the damage. Claire came home that night carrying apologies like groceries, arms full, dropping things, hoping I'd help her pick them up. I didn't. Tommy was with Dean. I'd called in a favor, asked him to take my son for pizza and a movie, something to keep him occupied while Claire and I had the conversation that couldn't wait any longer. Dean didn't ask questions, just said, I got you, brother, and picked Tommy up at 5. The house was quiet when Claire's headlights swept across the living room window. I sat on the couch. Same spot I'd been in all night, scrolling through Jake's photos, reading Patricia's text apologies, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. The front door opened, closed. She stood in the entryway, coat still on, keys clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Her face was pale, no makeup, hair pulled back in a ponytail, the way she wore it on weekends when she wasn't trying to impress anyone. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me come home." I didn't answer, just looked at her. She set her purse down, took off her coat, moved toward the living room, like she was approaching something that might bite. "Can I sit?" "It's your house, too." She flinched at that. Sat in the armchair across from me, not on the couch, not next to me. Smart. She knew better. "Marcus." Ian, her voice was small. "Please, let me explain everything." "Go ahead." She took a breath, let it out slow. I watched her hands twist in her lap, the way they always did when she was nervous. 11 years. I knew her tells. I just hadn't been paying attention. "It started at the Christmas party," she said. "Last December, Jake had just joined the firm, and he was charming, funny. He paid attention to me, asked questions about my life, my day, what I was reading, what shows I liked, little things." She looked at me, waiting for something. I gave her nothing. "You were working so much. 60 hours a week, sometimes more. I'd put Tommy to bed and sit in this house alone, night after night, and I felt like I was disappearing, like I could vanish and nobody would notice until the laundry piled up. So it's my fault." "No." She shook her head quickly. "I'm not saying that. I'm not blaming you. I'm explaining. There's a difference." "Is there?" Her jaw tightened. "Yes, there is. What I did was wrong. I know that. I've known it from the first time I let him kiss me. I cried for 3 days after. I told myself it would never happen again. But it did. Yes." Her voice cracked. "It did. And I hated myself every time. I'd come home and look at Tommy and feel like the worst mother in the world. I'd see you come through that door, exhausted from work, and I'd think, he's doing everything right, and I'm destroying us. Then why didn't you stop?" She was crying now, quiet tears sliding down her cheeks. "I don't know. I tried. 3 months ago, I told Jake it was over. He showed up at the office with flowers, told me he loved me, said he'd wait as long as it took. I believed him. I was stupid enough to believe him. Did you love him?" The question hung in the air. She looked at her hands. "I thought I did, for a while. He made me feel seen, like I mattered, like I wasn't just Tommy's mom and Marcus's wife, but me, Claire. A person with her own thoughts and wants, and I made you feel invisible." She looked up, surprised that I'd said it. "Yes," barely a whisper. "You did." The words sat between us, heavy, true. I thought about all those overtime shifts, all those nights I'd come home after Tommy was asleep, crawl into bed without waking Claire, set my alarm for 5 hours later, and do it again. I thought I was being a good provider. I thought the work was the love, that every hour I put in was proof that I cared. But I hadn't asked her how she was doing, hadn't noticed she was drowning, hadn't seen the distance growing between us until another man stepped into the gap. That didn't excuse what she did. I knew that, but maybe I understood it now, a little, enough to hurt differently. "When did it end?" I asked. "For real." "A month ago, I told him I was done. No more excuses, no more one last time." I blocked his number. Told HR I needed to be moved to a different department. They did it without asking why. "And Thanksgiving?" She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Thanksgiving was supposed to be my fresh start. I was going to tell you everything. After dinner, after Tommy was in bed, I had a whole speech planned. I was going to beg you to forgive me, to give me another chance, to let me try to fix what I broke. And then Tommy said grace. Yes." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, needed space, needed to move. She followed, stopped in the doorway, not crossing the threshold, waiting. I opened the refrigerator, pulled out the container Patricia had sent home with us. Leftover dinner rolls from Thanksgiving. I don't know why Claire brought them, or why I'd shoved them in the back of the fridge instead of throwing them away. I set one on the counter, stared at it. "Tommy reached for one of these," I said, while 14 people stopped breathing. He had no idea what he'd done, just wanted butter for his bread. "I know. He still doesn't understand, Claire. He asked me if he ruined the surprise. He thinks—" My voice caught. I made myself continue. "He thinks he did something wrong by telling the truth. Marcus, you taught him that." I turned to face her. "You taught our son to keep secrets from me. Ice cream, phone games. Don't tell Daddy, it's a surprise. And you made him complicit in your affair without his permission or understanding." Her face crumbled. I didn't think of it that way. I was just trying to keep things separate. To protect who? The anger rose now, finally breaking through the numb. Not me, not Tommy. You were protecting yourself. You were protecting your little fantasy where you gotta have both. The husband who worked himself dead to provide for you, and the boyfriend who showed up with pie and phone games and made you feel special. That's not... Do you know what he told me last night at the gas station? I picked up the dinner roll, held it like evidence. He said, Mr. Jake has a cool car that goes really fast. He said, Mr. Jake let him sit in the front seat. He said you told him to keep it secret because it would make Daddy happy. Claire was sobbing now, full, ugly sobs, shoulders shaking. And you know what else he said? I kept going, couldn't stop. He said you used to cry after Jake left. He said you looked sad, even though you told him you were happy. He's been watching us, Claire. Watching you cry, watching me work. Carrying all this weight that wasn't his to carry, and he's 7 years old. I set the roll down on the counter. Harder than I meant to. The thud echoed. Same weight as Patricia's fork hitting her plate, same finality. This is what innocence looks like. I pointed at it. A kid reaching for bread while his whole family falls apart, and he had no idea because you made him part of your lie. She tried to speak. Couldn't. Just stood there, arms wrapped around herself, tears streaming down her face. Part of me wanted to comfort her. 11 years of marriage, muscle memory. When Claire cried, I held her. That's what husbands did. But I wasn't sure what kind of husband I was anymore, or what kind she'd left me room to be. I need you to leave, I said. Marcus, please. Not forever. Just tonight, I can't look at you right now and think clearly. I can't figure out what I want while you're standing there crying, and I'm fighting the urge to make you feel better. She nodded, wiped her face, gathered herself with visible effort. Can I say one thing? I waited. I love you. Her voice was raw, wrecked. I made a terrible, terrible mistake. 100 terrible mistakes. But I love you. I never stopped loving you. Even when I was with him, Don't. I held up a hand. Don't tell me what you felt when you were with him. I can't hear that right now. She picked up her purse, her keys. At the door, she turned back. I'll be at my parents'. Call me when you're ready. Whenever that is, I'll wait. Claire, she paused. The answer to your question, the one you asked your mother, whether it's too late to save a marriage after you've done something terrible. I met her eyes. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But the fact that I found out from our son instead of from you, that's the part I can't get past. That's the part that might be unforgivable. She nodded, fresh tears on her cheeks. I know, she whispered. Then she was gone. I stood alone in my kitchen, the dinner roll still on the counter, the house silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the cheap Target clock on the wall. Outside, I heard her car start. Pull away. The headlights swept across the window, then disappeared. I picked up the dinner roll, looked at it for a long time, then I threw it in the trash. Tommy asked why Mommy wasn't at breakfast. I said she went to visit Grandma. He nodded like that made sense, and I realized I'd just learned how easy it is to lie to a child. 3 days since Thanksgiving, 3 days since the prayer, 3 days of Claire at her parents' house and me rattling around this place like a ghost who forgot how to leave. I made Tommy cereal again, Cheerios, the yellow box with the B. It was all I could manage. My hands still shook when I tried to do anything more complicated, and I'd burned toast twice already this week. The smoke alarm going off at 6 a.m. wasn't the wake-up call either of us needed. Daddy? Yeah, buddy. When is Mommy coming back? I poured milk into his bowl, focused on not spilling. Soon. She just needs some time with Grandma. Is Grandma sick? No, buddy. Just grown-up stuff. He accepted this, picked up his spoon, started eating. I watched him. The mechanical motion of spoon to mouth, the way his eyes were still heavy with sleep, the dinosaur pajamas he'd insisted on wearing 3 nights in a row because they were his favorites. He looked so normal, so untouched, but he wasn't untouched. I knew that now. He'd been watching us fall apart for months, seeing things he couldn't understand, carrying weight that wasn't his to carry, and I'd been too busy working to notice. Daddy? Yeah? You look tired? I almost laughed. I am tired, buddy. Maybe you should take a nap. That's what Mommy says when I'm cranky. Maybe I will. I wouldn't. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jake Brennan's boat photos. Claire's face at the Christmas party. Tommy reaching for a dinner roll, while 14 adults stopped breathing. But I smiled at my son and said, "Yeah, good idea, buddy. Eat your breakfast." The house felt wrong without Claire. Not wrong like I missed her. Wrong like a crime scene. Every room held evidence I couldn't stop cataloging. The living room couch. Had Jake sat there, watched TV with my son while I was at work? The coffee table, with Tommy's crayon drawings, had Jake seen those, commented on them, played the role of interested adult while planning his next visit upstairs? The kitchen was the worst, Claire's domain. Her coffee mug still in the sink from Thanksgiving morning, lipstick stain on the rim. Her grocery list on the fridge, milk, bread, Tommy's vitamins, wine. The wine was new. She'd started drinking more in the past year. I'd noticed but hadn't asked why. Should have asked. I cleaned the kitchen because I didn't know what else to do. Scrubbed the counters. Emptied the dishwasher. Threw out leftovers that had gone bad. Mechanical work. The kind of thing I did at the hospital when I needed to stop thinking. Just let my hands move, while my brain went somewhere else. It didn't work. My brain stayed right here, in this house, with all its contaminated rooms and unanswered questions. I couldn't go upstairs. Our bedroom was up there. The bed where Claire and I had slept for 8 years, where we'd conceived Tommy, where I'd held her after her miscarriage 5 years ago, where she'd held me after my mother's funeral. The bed where Jake Brennan had made her laugh really loud. I hadn't been up there since Wednesday. I'd been sleeping on the couch, showering in the downstairs bathroom, wearing clothes I grabbed from the laundry room. Tommy hadn't noticed. Kids don't notice things like that. Or maybe they do, and they just don't say anything. Maybe that's what he'd learned from watching us. Dean came over after Tommy went to school, Friday morning. I'd called in sick to work, first time in 3 years, told them I had a family emergency. Wasn't a lie. Dean brought coffee again. Same gas station, same cups. He was wearing his work jacket, Carhartt beanie, looking like he'd just come off a shift. "You look like hell," he said. "Thanks. I mean it. When's the last time you slept?" "I sleep. On the couch, fully dressed, with the TV on, so you don't have to hear the quiet. That's not sleeping. That's surviving." I didn't argue. He wasn't wrong. We sat at the kitchen table. Same spots as before. He sipped his coffee, watching me over the rim. "She come back yet?" "No. I told her I needed space." "Well, how much space?" "I don't know." I rubbed my face. "I don't know anything right now. I keep going in circles. One minute, I'm so angry I want to drive to Jake's place and put my fist through his face. Next minute, I'm thinking about what she said, how I made her feel invisible, and I wonder if this is my fault too." Dean set his cup down, looked at me hard. "Can I say something you're really not going to want to hear? Do I have a choice?" "No." He leaned forward. "You've been working 60-hour weeks for how long? 3 years? 4? The hospital needed warm bodies. They didn't need you specifically. They needed someone to fix pipes and change filters and mop up messes. You chose to be that guy because it made you feel, what? Valuable? Needed? Like you were doing something important?" My jaw tightened. "I was providing for my family." "You were hiding from your family." Dean's voice wasn't angry, just honest. The worst kind of honest. "I know, because I did the same thing before Christina left. I worked doubles, triples, anything to avoid coming home to a house that felt empty, even when she was in it. I told myself I was being responsible. Turns out I was just being a coward. That's not..." "Let me finish." And he held up a hand. "I'm not saying what Claire did was right. It wasn't. She made a choice, and it was the wrong choice, and she's got to live with that. But Marcus, you weren't there. You were providing, sure, but you weren't there. And that's on you." The words hit like a punch to the chest. "So this is my fault?" "No, this is her fault. The affair, the lies, the using Tommy to cover her tracks, that's all on her. But marriage doesn't work like that. It's not all or nothing, black or white. You both let something die. She just put a knife in it first." I didn't respond. Couldn't. Dean let the silence sit. He was good at that, letting people come to their own conclusions instead of forcing them there. "I'm not trying to beat you up," he said finally. "I'm trying to keep you from making the same mistakes I made. The revenge, the anger, the obsessing over the other guy, none of that helped me. It just made me feel righteous while everything else burned. What am I supposed to do? Forgive her? Pretend it didn't happen?" I didn't say that either. Dean shook his head. "I'm saying you got to figure out what actually matters. And I think," he glanced toward the stairs, "I think it's not up there. It's in that room down the hall with the dinosaur sheets. Tommy's room. The only room in this house that still felt clean. He needs a dad right now," Dean continued. "A present one. Whatever you decide about Claire, whatever happens with the marriage, that kid needs you to show up. Not working overtime, not spiraling about Jake. Here, now." He finished his coffee, stood up. "I got to get to the hospital, but you call me if you need anything, okay? Day or night, I mean it." "Dean." He paused at the door. "Thanks," he nodded. "Don't do what I did, brother." Then he was gone. That afternoon, I picked Tommy up from school. He climbed into the truck, backpack too big for his small frame, and immediately started talking about his day. Mrs. Patterson taught them about pilgrims. There was pizza for lunch. His friend Marcus, not you, Daddy, the other Marcus, had pushed him on the swings. Normal kid stuff. The background music of a childhood still intact. But when we got home and I was making him a snack, apple slices, peanut butter, the only other thing I could manage besides cereal, he got quiet. Daddy? Yeah, buddy? Did Mr. Jake go away because of my prayer? I stopped cutting, set down the knife. What do you mean? Tommy picked at the edge of the table, not looking at me. He used to come over a lot, but he didn't come this week, and Mommy's at Grandma's, and everyone's sad. He finally looked up. Did I do something bad? I crossed the kitchen, knelt down so I was at his level, eye to eye. Tommy, look at me. He did. His eyes were wet. He was trying not to cry. You didn't do anything bad. You understand me? You told the truth. You were kind. You blessed people at Thanksgiving because that's what grace is. None of what's happening is your fault. Then why is everyone sad? Because your mother broke our family, and I didn't notice it dying until it was already dead. I couldn't say that, so I said, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, big ones, and it takes time to figure out how to fix them. But that's grown-up stuff, not your stuff, okay? He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Daddy? Yeah? Can I tell you something? My chest tightened. You can tell me anything, buddy. Always. He was quiet for a moment, then, sometimes when Mr. Jake left, Mommy would go in her room and cry. I could hear her through the door, and one time I went in and asked if she was okay, and she hugged me really tight and said she was sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry for what? I don't know. She just kept saying it. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then she made me promise not to tell you because she didn't want you to worry. Another secret. Another thing my son had been carrying. Did she say anything else? Tommy thought about it. She said she wished she could go back in time and do things different. I asked if she meant like a time machine. She laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. I pulled him into my arms, held him tight. He smelled like school, crayons and cafeteria and the vague sweat of a kid who'd been running at recess. Thank you for telling me that, buddy. Am I in trouble? No, never. You did the right thing. I held him until he squirmed, then let go. Gave him his apple slices, watched him eat. He'd been watching his mother cry for months, hearing her apologize through bedroom doors, carrying her guilt like a backpack. He didn't know how to take off. And I hadn't known, because I wasn't here. That night, after Tommy was asleep, I sat on the couch in the dark. My phone was in my hand. Jake Brennan's address on the screen. 1847 Willow Creek Drive, a condo complex on the nice side of town. I'd looked it up 3 days ago. Hadn't done anything with the information. I could go there, right now. Knock on his door, look him in the eye, make him understand what he'd done to my family. Dean's voice in my head, don't do what I did. My father's voice, barely remembered. A real man handles his business. But what was my business now? Revenge? Making Jake hurt the way I hurt? Or the 7-year-old down the hall who needed a father who stayed? I looked at the phone, then at Tommy's bedroom door. My father left when I was 12. Just walked out, said he'd be back for his stuff and never came. I'd spent my whole adult life trying to be the opposite of him. The man who provided, the man who showed up, the man who stayed. But staying in a building isn't the same as staying in a life. I'd been present in body and absent in every other way. Working, fixing, running from the quiet moments where Claire might have told me she was drowning if I'd just asked. I put the phone down, not because I'd forgiven anyone, not because the rage had faded. Because Tommy couldn't afford to lose both parents to this, one to an affair, one to revenge. He needed at least one of us to stay, for real this time. I spent Saturday at the hospital fixing a broken ventilation system while my own marriage suffocated 3 miles away. Couldn't stay in the house. Couldn't sit on that couch another hour, staring at walls that held secrets I hadn't known to look for. So I called my supervisor, told him I was feeling better, asked if they needed anyone for the weekend shift. They always needed someone for the weekend shift. Tommy was at Dean's place, another favor, another debt I'd owe him. Dean didn't ask why I needed to work. He knew. Some men drink when their lives fall apart. Some men fight. I fix things. Pipes, filters, ventilation systems, anything that has a problem I can solve with my hands. The hospital basement was quiet on Saturdays, just me and the machines. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, the smell of industrial cleaner and recycled air. I'd spent more hours down here than I could count, more hours than I'd spent in my own living room, probably. More hours than I'd spent watching Tommy grow up. You were providing, but you weren't there. Dean's words followed me through the hallways, into the mechanical rooms, down the service corridors where nobody went except maintenance guys like me. I couldn't shake them. I couldn't argue with them either. I found the broken vent in the east wing, 3rd floor, The nurses had complained about cold air for a week, and nobody had gotten around to it. I opened my toolkit, pulled out my flashlight, and went to work. The problem was a disconnected duct. Simple fix, 10 minutes, maybe 15, the kind of job I could do in my sleep. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I sat back against the wall, closed my eyes. 9 months. Claire had been sleeping with Jake for 9 months. 270 days, give or take. How many of those days had I been here, in this basement, fixing other people's problems? How many nights had I come home after Tommy was asleep, crawled into bed without waking Claire, set my alarm for 5 hours later? I'd told myself I was being responsible, a good provider, the man my father never was. But my father left all at once. One day he was there, next day he was gone. Clean break. At least you knew where you stood. I'd left slowly, inch by inch, shift by shift, until one day I looked up and realized I'd become a ghost in my own house. A paycheck with legs, a body that occasionally showed up for dinner, and fell asleep on the couch during movies. You made me feel invisible, Claire had said. I wanted to be angry at that, wanted to throw it back at her. You made yourself invisible by sneaking around with another man. But the truth was more complicated. The truth usually is, I'd made her invisible first, not on purpose, not with malice, just with absence. Just with the slow erosion of attention that happens when you stop looking at someone, stop asking how their day was, stop noticing when they're drowning. She'd reached for someone who noticed, someone who asked questions, someone who was there. It didn't excuse what she did. Nothing excused what she did. But sitting in that hospital basement, hands still shaking, I couldn't pretend I was purely innocent anymore. I finished the vent repair, moved on to a clogged drain in the cafeteria, then a flickering light in the chapel, then a squeaky door in the pediatric wing. Work, work, work. The rhythm of it calmed me. Wrench, screwdriver, flashlight, problems with solutions, things that broke and could be fixed. Not like marriage, not like trust, not like the look on my son's face when he asked if he'd ruined the surprise. She said she was sorry. I don't know for what. Tommy's voice kept echoing in my head. That small, confused voice, carrying weight he shouldn't have known existed. He'd heard his mother crying through the bedroom door. He'd been told to keep secrets. He'd watched both his parents disappear, Claire into guilt, me into work. And he'd thought it was normal because he didn't know any different. What kind of father lets that happen? The kind who's never home to see it. My shift ended at 6. I sat in my truck, in the hospital parking lot, engine off, watching the sun go down. November dusk, gray and cold, the kind of light that makes everything look tired. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Jake Brennan's address, stared at it. 1847 Willow Creek Drive. I could drive there right now. 15 minutes. I could knock on his door, look him in the eye, say the things that were burning a hole in my chest. You were in my house. You played games with my son. You slept in my bed. You made my wife cry after you left because even she knew what you were doing was poison. I could do that. I had every right. But then what? Dean's face flashed in my mind. The way he looked when he talked about throwing a weight through the trainer's car window. The way he said I lost 2 years of my life to hate. My father's voice, too. The one memory I had of him trying to give advice a few months before he left for good. We were in the garage, and he was working on his truck, and he said, "A real man handles his business. Marcus, don't let anyone push you around." A week later, he handled his business by walking out on us. Never came back, never called, just gone. I'd spent my whole life trying to be the opposite of him. Staying, providing, being the man who showed up. But I'd gotten it wrong, hadn't I? I'd stayed in the building. I hadn't stayed in the life. I'd provided money. I hadn't provided presents. I'd shown up to work every day. I'd barely shown up at home. A real man handles his business, maybe. But what was my business now? Revenge? Making Jake Brennan hurt? Or that 7-year-old at Dean's apartment, eating pizza and watching cartoons, waiting for his daddy to pick him up? I put the phone away, started the truck, drove to Dean's place instead. Tommy was asleep on Dean's couch when I got there, wrapped in an old Afghan, Finding Nemo playing on the TV with the volume low. "He crashed about an hour ago," Dean said quietly. "Ate 2 slices of pepperoni and passed out mid-movie. Kid's exhausted." I looked at my son. The rise and fall of his chest, the way his mouth hung open, the way his hand curled around the edge of the blanket like he was holding onto something. "Thanks for watching him." "Anytime, brother. You know that." I sat down on the arm of the couch. Not close enough to wake Tommy, just close enough to watch him breathe. I almost drove to Jake's place tonight. Dean didn't say anything, just waited. I sat in the parking lot at the hospital with his address on my phone, 15 minutes away. I could have been there and back before Tommy woke up. "But you didn't go." "No." Why not?" I thought about the question. The real answer, not the easy one. Because I keep thinking about what kind of man I want Tommy to see when he looks at me. And that man, I paused. That man doesn't drive across town to beat up some realtor who made bad choices. That man comes home. That man shows up. That man is here. Dean nodded slowly. That's growth, brother. It doesn't feel like growth. Feels like surrender. Sometimes they're the same thing. He leaned against the doorframe. You can't control what Claire did. You can't control what Jake did. The only thing you can control is what you do next. And right now what you're doing is sitting here watching your kid sleep, choosing him over the anger. He shrugged. That's not surrender. That's being a father. I looked at Tommy again. Thought about all the nights I'd missed, all the bedtimes I'd traded for overtime, all the small moments that added up to a childhood I'd watched from the edges instead of living inside. Being alone isn't the same as being lonely, I thought. Something my grandmother used to say. She'd been widowed at 45, raised 3 kids by herself, never complained once. I'd always thought that phrase meant you didn't need anyone, that solitude was strength. But maybe it meant something else. Maybe it meant that loneliness isn't about the absence of people. It's about the absence of connection. You can be surrounded by family and still be alone. You can live in a house with a wife and a son and still be a ghost. That's what I'd been. A ghost who signed paychecks and fixed things and thought he was present because he was breathing the same air. No more. I lifted Tommy gently. He stirred, but didn't wake. Just nestled his head against my shoulder the way he'd done since he was a baby. Thanks, Dean. You call me if you need anything. I carried my son out to the truck. Buckled him in carefully. He murmured something in his sleep. Might have been daddy, might have been nothing. I drove home slow. Didn't want to wake him. The house was dark when we got there. Same house, same rooms. Same contaminated spaces and unanswered questions. But something had shifted. I carried Tommy inside, put him in his bed, covered him with the dinosaur blanket, stood in the doorway of his room, rocket ship nightlight glowing soft against the walls. For the first time, in days, I didn't feel like running. I felt like staying. I had Jake Brennan's address. I had every reason to go. Instead, I drove to pick up my son, Sunday afternoon. 1 week since Thanksgiving, 1 week since a 7-year-old's prayer cracked my life down the middle and let all the hidden water come flooding out. Claire had called that morning. Voice careful, measured, the way you talk when you're trying not to spook something. I want to see Tommy, she said. Please. It's been almost a week. I miss him so much it hurts to breathe. I'd said yes, because whatever she'd done to me, she was still his mother. Because Tommy had asked about her every day. When is Mommy coming back? Is Mommy okay? Can I call Mommy? And I couldn't keep him from her just to punish her. That would make me the villain. And I was done adding to the damage. I'll bring him to your parents' place, I told her. He can spend the afternoon. I'll pick him up before dinner. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you. She'd started crying. I'd hung up before I could hear more. The drive to the Westons took me through the east side of town, past the Speedway where Tommy and I had eaten gas station pie, past the hospital where I'd spent half my adult life fixing other people's broken systems, past the turn for Willow Creek Drive. Jake Brennan's street. I slowed at the intersection. Didn't mean to. Just happened. 1847 Willow Creek Drive. I knew the building now. Had looked it up on Google Maps so many times the image was burned into my brain. Beige siding, blue doors, a parking lot with spaces for visitors. His silver Lexus would be there. The cool car that went really fast, the one Tommy had sat in while I was at work. I could turn left, be there in 3 minutes, just to look at him, just to see his face in person instead of on a screen, just to let him know that I knew that someone had seen behind his boat photos and gym selfies to the parasite underneath. My hands tightened on the wheel, then my phone buzzed. Tommy, Daddy, when are you coming? Grandma made cookies, but I saved you one. Claire must have helped him type it. He could read pretty well for his age, but typing was still shaky. I looked at the message, then at the road to Jake's place. Then I kept driving straight. The Weston house looked the same as Thanksgiving, which felt wrong somehow, like it should have changed. Like there should be visible damage, scorch marks on the siding, cracks in the foundation, something to show that a family had blown apart inside those walls a week ago. But it just sat there. Same split level from the 90s, same manicured lawn now brown with November, same welcome sign on the door that didn't feel very welcoming. I parked in the driveway, sat for a moment. The last time I'd been here, I'd walked out with Tommy's hand in mine and rage in my chest. Patricia had tried to stop me. Richard had apologized. Claire had stood in the doorway, watching us leave. Now I was back, voluntarily, because my son needed to see his mother, and that mattered more than my comfort. This is what being a father looks like, I told myself. Not revenge, not punishment, just showing up for your kid, even when it hurts. I got out of the truck. The front door opened before I reached it. Tommy came flying out, nearly knocking me over with the force of his hug. Daddy, I caught him, held him tight. He smelled like sugar cookies and laundry detergent. Patricia's house, Patricia's routines. Hey, buddy, miss me? I made cookies with Grandma, and Mommy let me watch 2 movies. And I saved you a cookie, but then I accidentally ate it, so I saved you a different one. I laughed. Actually laughed. First time in a week, maybe. That's okay, buddy. I'll take the different one. It has sprinkles. Even better. Over Tommy's shoulder, I saw Claire in the doorway. She looked thin, pale, dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She'd been crying recently. I could tell from the puffiness around her eyelids, the slight redness at the edges. She looked terrible. She looked like I felt. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, Tommy wriggled out of my arms. Mommy, can I show Daddy my Lego thing? The one Grandpa helped me make? Claire nodded. It's on the kitchen table, sweetie. Be careful carrying it. Tommy ran inside. The door swung shut behind him, and then it was just us, standing on the porch, the November cold pressing in. Thank you, Claire said, for bringing him, for letting me see him. He's your son, too. I know, but you could have... She trailed off, swallowed. You could have made this harder. I thought about it. She flinched. I hadn't meant it to hurt, but it did anyway. Truth has a way of doing that. Marcus, She stopped, started again. I found a couples therapist, a good one. She specializes in situations like ours. If you're willing, if you think there's anything left to save. I looked at her. Really looked. This was Claire. The woman I'd married 11 years ago, back when we were young and stupid and convinced love was enough. The woman who'd laughed at my bad jokes, who'd held my hand during the ultrasound, when we first saw Tommy's heartbeat, who'd sat beside me at my mother's funeral and didn't say anything, just stayed. This was also Claire. The woman who'd slept with another man for 9 months, who'd taught our son to keep secrets, who'd brought that man into our home while I was at work, let him eat at our table, play games with our child, make her laugh really loud upstairs. Yet both of those women were standing in front of me. Both of them true. I don't know, I said. That's fair, her voice cracked. That's more than fair. I'm not saying no. I'm saying I don't know. There's a difference. She nodded, tears on her cheeks now. She wiped them away quickly, like she didn't deserve to cry in front of me. Maybe she didn't. I wasn't sure anymore. I'm going to take Tommy to the park, I said. That one by the library, the one with the big slide. Then I'll bring him back here for a few more hours, give you more time together. You don't have to. I know, I want to. I paused. He needs both of us, Claire. Whatever happens between you and me, he needs to know both his parents love him. That's not negotiable. She nodded again, more tears. I love you, she whispered. I know I don't have the right to say that anymore. I know I broke it. But I love you, Marcus. I never stopped. I didn't respond. Couldn't. The words just sat there, heavy in the cold air. Tommy burst back through the door, carrying a Lego spaceship that looked like it was held together by hope and Grandpa's patience. Look, Daddy, it has lasers. Wow, buddy, that's amazing. Can we go to the park? Mommy said maybe you'd take me to the park. I glanced at Claire. She gave a small nod. Yeah, I said. Let's go to the park. The park was empty. Too cold for most families. Too close to dinner for the kids who'd brave the weather anyway. Tommy didn't care. He ran straight for the big slide, the twisty one that spiraled down like a corkscrew, and climbed the ladder like his life depended on it. I sat on a bench nearby, watched him slide down, run back up, slide down again, over and over, relentless joy. The kind of energy you only have when you're 7 and the world still makes sense. Daddy, watch this. I'm watching, buddy. He went down head first, came out the bottom laughing, covered in static, hair standing up in every direction. Did you see? I saw. That was awesome. I'm going to do it again. He was already climbing. I sat there on that cold bench, hands in my pockets, watching my son play. The sky was going gray. First real clouds in days. Weather report said snow was coming, the first of the season. 1 year from now, I thought, where will we be? Divorced? Reconciled? Some messy middle ground where Claire and I passed Tommy back and forth like a package? Polite and distant and permanently broken. I didn't know. Couldn't know. But I knew one thing. Tommy would be okay. Not because I could protect him from everything. I couldn't. I'd already failed at that. But because I was going to be here. Present. Paying attention. No more 60-hour weeks. No more hiding in the hospital basement while my family drowned. No more being a ghost who signed paychecks and called it love. Tommy came running over. Climbed onto the bench beside me, breathing hard, cheeks red from the cold. Daddy? Yeah, buddy? Are you and Mommy going to be okay? The question I'd been dreading. The one I didn't have an answer for. But Tommy deserved honesty. He'd been carrying adult secrets for too long already. I wasn't going to add another one. I don't know, buddy. I put my arm around him. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that are hard to fix, but we're both trying. And no matter what happens between mommy and me, we both love you. That doesn't change. That can't change. Like when you fix the machines at work, you're trying to fix it? I almost smiled. Kind of. But people are harder to fix than machines. Why? Because machines don't have feelings. People do. And feelings are complicated. He thought about this, nodded like it made sense, even though it probably didn't. Not fully, not yet. Daddy? Yeah? At Thanksgiving, when I said the prayer. He looked up at me. Was that wrong? Mommy cried after, and you got sad, and everyone was quiet. Here it was, the moment. I turned on the bench so I was facing him, eye to eye, father to son. Tommy, listen to me. What you did at Thanksgiving, saying grace, thanking God for people, that wasn't wrong. That's what grace is. You were kind, you were honest, you blessed people. But everyone got sad. Yeah, they did. But that wasn't because of what you said. That was because of grown-up stuff that had been hiding for a long time. You just shined a light on it. And sometimes when you shine a light on dark things, it hurts for a while. But it's better than leaving them in the dark. He processed this slowly. I could see him working through it, fitting the pieces together. So I didn't do anything bad? No, buddy. You did something brave. You told the truth. And telling the truth is never wrong, even when it's hard, even when people don't want to hear it, even when it makes people cry. Even then, as I squeezed his shoulder. Blessing someone doesn't mean they deserve it, Tommy. It means you have a good heart, and you do. You have the best heart of anyone I know. He leaned into me, small and warm against the cold. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, buddy. We sat there for a while, watching the empty playground, feeling the first snowflakes start to fall, tiny and light, barely there, but coming. Daddy? Yeah? Can we get hot chocolate? I laughed, pulled him closer. Yeah, buddy, we can get hot chocolate. 1 year later, Tommy asked to say grace again. Different table this time, smaller. My apartment, a 2-bedroom on the west side of town, nothing fancy but ours. The walls were still mostly bare. I kept meaning to hang pictures, kept not getting around to it. Tommy said it looked like a starter house, a phrase he'd picked up from somewhere. Probably Claire. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Joint custody. Civil, for Tommy's sake. We'd done the therapy thing for a while. 3 sessions, 4. But somewhere around the second month, we both knew some things can't be fixed. Some cracks go too deep. You can choose to stop blaming each other and still choose not to stay. Claire had moved into an apartment across town. Smaller than ours, but nicer. She'd gotten a promotion at work. Different firm now. No more Jake Brennan in the hallways. I didn't ask about him. Didn't want to know. That chapter was closed. Tommy split his weeks between us. Wednesday nights and every other weekend with me. The rest with Claire. It wasn't perfect, but it was fair. And fair was the best we could do. Thanksgiving dinner this year. Me, Tommy, Dean, and 2 guys from work. Miguel and Ray, both divorced, both without family in town. The island of misfit dads, Dean called us. I'd made turkey. It was dry, but nobody complained. The stuffing came from a box. The mashed potatoes came from a bag. The rolls came from the grocery store bakery, fresh that morning, still warm when I set them on the table. Can I say grace? Tommy asked. The table went quiet. Dean glanced at me. I saw the question in his eyes. You sure about this? I looked at my son, 8 years old now. Taller than last year, missing a different set of teeth, wearing a sweater Claire had bought him that he complained was itchy. He'd been through more in the past 12 months than most kids face in a childhood, and here he was, asking to bless the meal. Sure, buddy, I said. Go ahead. Tommy closed his eyes, bowed his head. We followed. Dear God, he began, thank you for this food. Thank you for Daddy, who makes pretty good turkey even though it's a little dry. Dean snorted. I kicked him under the table. Thank you for Mr. Dean, who tells funny jokes. Thank you for Miguel and Ray, who came to our house because they didn't have anywhere else to go. Thank you for our apartment that's small but cozy. And thank you for Mommy. Even though she lives somewhere else now, she's still my mom. And I love her. Amen. Amen, we echoed. Tommy opened his eyes, smiled, reached for a dinner roll. I watched his hand. Small fingers closing around warm bread. The same gesture as last year. The same reach. The same innocence. But everything was different now. Last Thanksgiving, that reach had shattered me. I'd watched my son grab a roll while my whole world collapsed, and I'd wanted to scream, to shake him, to ask how he could just keep eating while everything burned. Now I watched the same motion and felt something else entirely. Peace. Not the peace of everything being fine. It wasn't, not completely. Maybe never would be, but the peace of having survived, of being here, of choosing every day to show up for this kid who still reached for bread, still said grace, still believed that blessing people mattered, even when they didn't deserve it. After dinner, Tommy fell asleep on the couch. Too much turkey, too much pie, too much of Dean teaching him card tricks that never quite worked. He was out cold by 7, mouth open, one arm dangling off the cushion. Dean helped me clean up. Miguel and Ray left with handshakes and leftovers. The apartment got quiet. "Hell of a year, brother," Dean said, drying a plate. "Yeah. You doing okay? For real?" I considered the question, the honest answer this time. I'm getting there. Not I'm good, not the lie I'd told for years, the reflexive deflection that meant nothing. I'm getting there. The truth. Dean nodded. Set the plate in the cabinet. That's all any of us can do. And he left around 8. I sat down on the couch next to Tommy, didn't turn on the TV, just sat in the quiet, listening to my son breathe. The first snow of the season had started falling while we ate. I could see it through the window now, light flakes drifting down, catching the glow of the street lamp outside. Quiet, clean. The kind of snow that covers things gently, buries what came before without violence. Tommy stirred. His hand reached out, found mine, held on. Even in sleep, he was still reaching. I thought about Thanksgiving last year. The prayer, the silence. Patricia's fork hitting the plate. Claire's face cycling through colors. My hand gripping Tommy's so hard my knuckles went white. I'd thought, in that moment, that my son had destroyed us. But that wasn't true, was it? The affair destroyed us. The secrets destroyed us. The slow erosion of a marriage neither of us had tended. Me hiding in work, Claire hiding in someone else's attention. That's what destroyed us. Tommy just told the truth. A 7-year-old boy, hands raised, blessing the people at his table, including the one who shouldn't have been there, including the wound nobody wanted to see. Blessing someone doesn't mean they deserve it. It means you have a good heart. And I told him that at the park a year ago. I'd meant it then. I meant it more now. My son had blessed what was broken. He'd named the thing we'd all been hiding from. And somehow, against every odd, that act of innocent exposure had been the start of something new. Not fixed, not healed completely, but new. Tommy's hand tightened around mine, a small squeeze. Maybe dreaming, maybe half awake, maybe just holding on because that's what kids do. I squeezed back. Gentle this time, not desperate. He blessed what was broken, I thought. And that's how I knew it could heal. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, my son kept breathing. Being alone isn't the same as being lonely. And grace isn't something you earn. It's something a 7-year-old gives you without knowing why.